A lone protagonist, a castle full of monsters, and an eerie gothic atmosphere in a game that has become a PS2 Capcom classic. This is Haunting Ground, a game about Fiona, a girl who wakes up in a mysterious castle and finds herself hunted by its residents. Wait, sorry, wrong game. This video is actually about the forefather of what we know today as the character action or spectacle fighter genre, defined by games like God of War, Ninja Gaiden, and Bayonetta. It's a game whose release over 20 years ago shook the action genre up so much that Disney even had Capcom make a Nightmare Before Christmas clone of it. It's a game that answered the question, what do you get when you take the survival horror design of Resident Evil and inject it with the adrenaline-pumping stylish action gameplay of Hideki Kamiya?
Wanna know the name? Devilmaycry.
Jackpot.
The conception of the original Devil May Cry is an interesting story that I'm sure most fans of the series would be familiar with. It was a game that came about by chance in 1999 when Capcom was looking to develop a sequel to Biohazard 3, or Resident Evil 3 for the upcoming PlayStation 2. The project, codenamed Biohazard 4, was assigned to Hideki Kamiya of Bayonetta and Block You on Twitter fame, when the then producer of the RE series, Shinji Mikami, requested he return to the director's seat following his work on Resident Evil 2. Kamiya's vision for the franchise's fourth numbered entry was that of a fast and stylish action game, with a story penned by Noboru Sugimura, which explored the mystery surrounding a man named Tony Redgrave, a police officer and the son of Oswell E. Spencer, gifted with an undying body and superhuman abilities acquired through biotechnology. And while the name Redgrave was chosen because of its similarity to the likes of Chris Redfield, Tony was designed with the intention of being cooler than the heroes who came before him. Kamiya envisioned him as a witty yet traditional fighting man with a long stylish coat who didn't just wield firearms like his Star's counterparts, but magical weapons of demonic origins as well. He was a character who was always more powerful than the enemies he faced and was too cool to smoke, with Kamiya citing Cobra from Space Adventure Cobra as being a key influence on his design. Well, besides Cobra being a heavy smoker, but at least it explains why Dante is always dressed in red. To help further realize the coolness factor of Tony, Kamiya chose to depart from pre-rendered backgrounds and fixed camera angles in favor of fully 3D environments with a dynamic camera to make the player look more heroic and brave during gameplay. But as the game's development continued, it became clear that its design and aesthetic were just too different or too cool to fit in with the Resident Evil series. Which is ridiculous. I mean, look at how cool Leon is. Jesus Christ, there were people in those cars! So instead, Shinji Mikami encouraged Kamiya to turn this prototype into an entirely new game, splitting the development team from the original Biohazard 4 project in two. Kamiya led Team Little Devils, whose work up until that point was named the Stylish build, while the remaining developers worked on the new direction for the project. But they ended up facing quite a few complications that resulted in the creation of 3 test builds, famously known to RE4 fans as Castle, Hallucination, and Zombie. Each had their own take on the game and how Leon would interact with the world, with some of the concepts from Hallucination and Zombie even making it into future Resident Evil games. Castle, on the other hand, was reworked entirely into the game Haunting Ground, but those are stories for another time. After taking on a life of its own, Kamiya's new project was given the working title Carnival with a K. Apparently, Kamiya was adamant that it was spelt this way. I wonder why. And because it was no longer a Resident Evil game, a rewrite was needed to strip it of all elements related to the series. So no more Umbrella, zombies were replaced with demons, and Tony became Dante as an allusion to the Italian poet Dante Alighieri and his poem The Divine Comedy, although he would go by the name Tony Redgrave in his early Devil Hunter years, which is actually reflected on his signature pistols Ebony and Ivory, where an engraving reading For Tony Redgrave can be seen throughout the series. While changes to the story were necessary when the project was reworked, it wasn't all that was altered, as adjustments were made to the game's overall structure as well. Kamiya opted for a mission-based progression system instead of a more open style to better suit the game's focus on combat and action. And although this change was made pretty late into development, it's been a staple in every DMC game since, with most entries featuring 20 main missions with the exception of the first 2, where DMC 1 has 23 and DMC 2 kind of has 31. More on that in the future. After a few more months of development, by November of the year 2000, the name Devil May Cry was officially revealed. But before we get into it, I just wanted to mention a few things. That bike is really loud. Even though DMC isn't known for its story, I'll still have a major spoiler warning later in the video in case anyone wants to see it for themselves. And I'll also be adding extra details from the sequels to flesh out the narrative, but I'll be sure not to dilute the original experience too much. Lastly, I was sick when I played this, so I may or may not have made some not so pro gamer moves like using items on bosses. Please don't bully me. And with all that said, we already know the name, so let's get started. As the game opens, we see a dark figure surrounded by flames and wielding a giant blade while he practices his sick Bugman kata. We're told of a war that took place 2,000 years ago between the human world and the underworld, during which a lone warrior from the armies of hell woke up to justice and turned against the invading forces. This warrior was Sparta, the most powerful demon swordsman and the right-hand man of Mundus, the Prince of Darkness. Sparta single-handedly defeated him and his army, after which he banished them back to hell with the help of a human priestess, bringing about an era of peace to the human world. Tales of his courage and righteousness were passed down through the generations, and he himself would become known as the legendary Dark Knight Sparta, a mantle he would carry with him until his death centuries later. In the modern day, a bolt of lightning announces the arrival of a mysterious woman, searching for the paranormal investigation agency, devilmaycry. There we're introduced to the store's owner, Dante, a devil hunter and mercenary who takes any job provided that the client has the right password. And just as he finishes his call, the woman from before crashes through the front door. She definitely stole that bike, by the way. You could see it parked outside. Hell, it might even be Dante's. But regardless, he seems pretty amused and assumes that this mysterious woman resorted to extreme violence and property damage because she needed the toilet.
So, you must be the handyman who'll take any dirty job. Am I correct?
Almost. I only take special jobs, if you know what I mean.
But before anything that'll get me demonetized can happen, the woman correctly identifies Dante as a man who lost his mother and brother to dark forces 20 years ago, and the son of the legendary Dark Knight Sparta. With his interest piqued, Dante reasons that if he kills every demon that comes his way, sooner or later he should hit the jackpot, finding the ones responsible. And coincidentally, this woman happens to be the first person to know about Dante's past. Taking his approach as a challenge, she electrocutes his blade and kicks Dante across the room, before impaling him with his own weapon. So just another Tuesday for Dante, I guess. And as she tries to finish him off with the motorbike, we get a glimpse of Dante's demonic power channeled through his pistols to shoot it back at her.
Even as a child, I had powers. There's demonic blood in me.
What strength?
This moment not only shows us the superhuman nature of Dante, but the delivery of this line by Drew Coombs sells the idea that Dante has been chasing his mission for a long time.
It seems that way.
The mysterious woman introduces herself as Trish and explains that she isn't Dante's enemy. Instead, she had actually come to seek his help to put an end to the underworld. But as she removes her sunglasses, Dante realizes that despite whoever this woman says she is, the face he was looking at belonged to his mother. Trish explains that Mundus resurrected 20 years ago and has been planning to conquer the human world once again. His goal is to escape his banishment through a hellgate located on Malay Island, a place closely connected to the underworld and whose inhabitants once worshipped him as a god. And so, with Dante convinced, the duo arrive at their destination, knocking open the gates to the castle housing Mundus, and our mission to finish what Sparta started begins. The two split up and we gain control over Dante for the first time, but if you aren't used to it, the movement can feel a little stiff. The development team seem to realize this as well because the first few areas don't have any battles, and are there to get you used to the game's basic movement. Players are encouraged to run, jump, and wall jump to find orbs before they can continue. These are items present throughout the entire series and come in a variety of colors and I assume flavors, with each having a unique benefit. Red orbs are the most common. They're dropped by enemies and are used as the game's basic currency. Blue orbs are hidden throughout the game and increase Dante's max health for every 4 that you collect. Greens heal Dante, yellows let you continue if you die, and purples increase your max devil trigger gauge, which we'll get a little bit later. After entering the castle, the quiet ambience is replaced with the eerie sounds of distant bells, church organs, and howling creatures, which creates a palpable sense of unease, as if the castle itself is telling us we shouldn't be here. This is one of the game's many tracks composed by Masami Ueda, Masato Koda, and Masao Senmongi, and while the game is full of atmospheric pieces like this, it isn't all that it has to offer, because it's during battle that Kamiya's vision of a cool and stylish action-adventure shines through, turning the eerie ambience into pure adrenaline as you send the demons back to hell. As we're having a look around the Great Hall, we find a blue door and a red door which are both locked, but while the blue door needs a key, the red one has a seal which can be dispelled with 45 red orbs. As we're collecting them, we inspect an ominous statue of a godlike figure and a horseman with a halberd. Neat. I hope no one falls on that. After collecting the 45 red orbs, we unseal the door and head into the next room. There we continue exploring the castle while smashing things for orbs in the process, until we find a rusty key resting in the hand of a marionette. That definitely isn't a demon, don't even worry about it. After taking the key, we turn to leave and whoa! It turns out that marionette was in fact a demon. And good, because we're 10 minutes and 36 seconds into the video and we haven't even done a single combo. Dante is equipped with a sword called the Force Edge and his pistols Ebony and Ivory, letting him fight with a combination of ranged and melee attacks, with the main goal being not only to survive the encounter, but to look good doing it. One thing to note is that Devil May Cry has a heavy emphasis on locking onto your targets while you fight, and yeah, that's not exactly surprising for an action game, but it's pretty important here. Locking on not only orients Dante towards the enemy, but also increases your offensive and defensive abilities, with many attacks and even dodge rolling only being possible when using it. And depending on your timing with button presses or the direction being held when attacking, Dante can also use different moves that'll extend your combos and even reposition himself or the enemy. Mastering these actions is a must to make the most of Devil May Cry's signature game mechanic, the Stylish Rank. It's a system that rates the player's performance in combat from D to S. You can increase your rank by chaining together different moves, parrying attacks, and taunting enemies while avoiding damage. The higher your rank gets, the more orbs you'll receive. Inversely, taking damage or repeating the same moves too often will decrease your rank, so make sure to mix things up. A good way to extend your combos is to launch an enemy into the air, and then juggle them with your pistols. But despite this being one of DMC's most famous features, Kamiya actually included it when the team developing Onimusha found a bug which caused enemies to bounce when hit multiple times. Capcom really just out there redefining entire gaming genres through glitches in the 90s, huh? After clearing out the swarm of marionettes, we return to the Great Hall and use the rusty key to unlock the blue door. In this room, we find an old biplane named the Carnival as a reference to the game's project name, and some more demons dangling above and in the basement below. Beating these guys will dispel a light seal blocking the exit, giving us access to the rest of the castle and clearing mission 1. The small break between missions gives us a chance to save our game, definitely do that, and spend some of our red orbs on items and upgrades. With demonic capitalism working just fine, we start mission 2 and begin fighting our way through the castle halls. We pass a locked door that needs another rusty key, check out a painting of a middle-aged man, run up some fancy steps and find a sword stuck in a statue. As we're admiring the piece, a voice calls out to Dante. It calls itself Alistair and tries to roll a crit on stealth killing our boy, but too bad for it, Dante is no ordinary boy. It turns out throwing itself into people is how Alistair tests their might, but thanks to Dante's demonic heritage, he survives the test and gets himself a new weapon. Alistair is a demonic tool known as a devil arm. These are weapons forged from demons that have the ability to channel their power for the user. In this case, in the form of a lightning-imbued blade which replaces the Force Edge as Dante's main weapon. So just put this in the trash, you don't need it anymore. With the devil arm removed, the statue of the tortured woman fades and is replaced with a carving depicting the Judge of Death. But we can't do anything with it right now, so we take the next door into the castle library. There we find a shotgun along with a key stuck in a painting of a Reaper-like devil. Spooky. We take the freebies and unlock the door back in the hallway, leading to a courtyard where we fight more marionettes. With Alistair, Dante can amplify his demonic powers by undergoing a Devil Trigger, a transformation that temporarily increases his abilities and gradually recovers his health. After dealing with the Horde, we find a statue of a lion, but we can't interact with it until we get a sign of some sort. Then I got lost and ended up backtracking for a while until I eventually noticed a door in the upper level of the room we started in. I've finished this game multiple times before, by the way. So we head into the next area and smack on an altar to reveal a trap door, leading to a secret room behind the library which gets us the Staff of Judgment. After picking it up, we try to leave, but the spooky Reaper from the painting materializes, and we get our first encounter with the Censors enemies. They'll lunge at you with their blades, but if you strike at the right time, you can deflect their attack and kill them in one hit with a well-placed gunshot. Leaving the library, we find a cluster of lava-filled spiders rushing under the Judge of Death. Taking the hint, we insert the Staff of Judgment to reveal a hidden passage leading to a cathedral adorned with pulsating pillars. That's creepy. At the back of the room is the Pride of Lion, the sign we need for the lion statue, but to obtain it we need to complete a trial. It involves crossing a bridge, getting hit by lightning, and fighting floating skulls underwater. DMC1 was kinda weird. But while we're here, we do some platforming to find a couple blue orb fragments and then return to the— goddammit. Okay, we fight the skulls again and then return to the cathedral to claim our prize. But as we do, Alistair reacts to a powerful presence. This is a general in Mundus's army known as Phantom, an arachnid-like demon with a shell harder than rock and molten lava for blood. The two size each other up until Phantom decides to take a swing at Dante, starting the first boss fight of the game. We attack the spicy spider's head and back while trying to avoid swipes from his claws and stinger. But if you get too far away from him, he will resort to ranged attacks. He can plunge his head into the ground and summon the dead, which shoot up from beneath Dante as pillars of fire. Just run and jump to avoid them. Jumping works more like a vertical dodge in DMC, which gives you a generous amount of invincibility, so use it often. Phantom will also shoot fireballs from his mouth, but timing your attacks will let you deflect them back at him for some good damage. After an overwhelming victory against Phantom, don't look at that, he realizes he's outmatched and retreats, letting us go free. But before we do, we take a moment to step on and shoot as many of his kids as we can. You know, for funsies. After killing about 100 of them, we run back down the hallway leading to the courtyard when suddenly, Phantom ambushes us for no reason at all. He'll do this a couple of times in the game, and these sequences are probably the best chance to power level Dante if you want to. You'll just need to start the mission, beat Phantom when he's chasing you, save the game, reload the file, and repeat. The orbs you collected will be carried over. After fighting off his completely unjustified assault, we use the Pride of Lion to dispel the barrier around the statue and fight off the shadow it releases. This guy should look familiar if you've played DMC5. Shoot it until the core is exposed and go to town, but be careful because it can shapeshift and attack you from any angle. When the shadow reaches low health, it'll glow red and try to self-destruct after biting you. Pro tip, it has a move where it'll try to stab you by turning into a spear. But if you jump on top of the spear to use as a foothold, you can deal extra damage with your guns. Defeating the shadow lets us enter the main tower connecting several important rooms in the castle. We find a door at the bottom that can't be opened, so we climb up to the top by activating this lift. At its peak, we find the death sentence, which is not a weapon unfortunately. Then go to the master bedroom located directly below to stab a statue with a ball gag in its mouth. It falls out and is actually a melancholy soul, the item we need to open the door back at the bottom of the tower we came from, and again, DMC1 was kinda weird. All the item related progression and puzzles are aspects left over from when the game was Resident Evil 4, and while they still exist in later games, it gets toned down as the series goes on, to the point where it's pretty much non-existent in DMC5. Dante retrieves the melancholy soul off the floor, but as he rises, both he and Alistair sense the presence of another powerful demon nearby. After a moment of staring down his twin, the figure morphs into a dark knight known as Nello Angelo, but unlike the rest of the demons so far, he doesn't attack and instead he seems to be issuing a challenge. Dante's surprised to encounter anyone with guts in a place like Malay Island, to which Nello Angelo responds by beckoning him to the courtyard below for a more suitable battlefield. How honourable. Heeding its challenge, Dante confronts the demon. The two trade blows, clashing their blades and firing off projectiles. Being a mirror image of Dante, many of Nello Angelo's attacks are similar to his own. Landing consecutive hits will cause him to guard with his sword. If attacked in this stance, he'll counterattack, so get behind him to continue the assault. As you lower his health, he'll teleport to different spots of the map to begin the next phase of battle. And if you get too far away, he'll throw these single-handed Hadoukens at you. As far as I know, you can't deflect them like with Phantom's fireballs, so just avoid them. After fighting his way up onto the rampart, Dante gains the upper hand, dropping the demon to one knee, but as he prepares the finishing blow, Nella Angelo evades his attack and beats him in hand-to-hand combat, pinning him against the nearby wall.
Harder, Daddy. What?
The force of the impact uncovers Dante's amulet, the side of which forces a reaction from Nella Angelo. Recoiling in pain, he bursts into a ball of demonic energy and retreats. With the immediate threat gone, the melancholy soul starts losing power, so we pick up the pace. We dispatch a shadow blocking the path,
Damn, not here.
go back through the master bedroom and insert it into the door at the bottom of the tower, letting us into the castle sewers. There we exterminate some demonic bugs before encountering a death scissor. This can be a bit of a wall for new players because the battle takes place in a small arena, and the enemy has a spitting attack that can hit you from off screen. One of the best ways to fight it is to wall jump directly above and attack with your sword, which will perform a helm splitter, driving your blade directly through the death scissor. But keep in mind that it can parry the attack, so I fired off the shotgun every time it did for some quick damage. After shattering the death scissor, we pick up the guiding light, a key needed for the master bedroom, and on our way back we get jumped by Phantom again, netting us some easy orbs. We use the key to reveal a door leading from the bedroom to the upper level of the Great Hall, which takes us to the castle roof and to our final encounter with Phantom. This fight is pretty much the same as the first, except Phantom can now shoot fireballs skyward which will track you. But you've got two options for beating him. Either take him on normally like the first time, or bait him into jumping onto this glass panel until it breaks. This will lead to an instant win, but it can take a while to pull off. Phantom finally realizes that Dante isn't an ordinary human. Took him long enough. And mistakes him for his father Sparta, but after Dante corrects him, Phantom's body fades away. We see Trish again for the first time since arriving on the island. She is impressed that Dante managed to beat Phantom and then wanders back off screen until the story needs her again. As we're exploring the top of the castle, we find a trident that lets us raise the gate blocking the main entrance and the grenade gun. If you want to play the game on easy mode, use it by firing once, rolling sideways, and firing again. This will cancel the cooldown animation which increases your attack speed, making it stupidly strong. Without any clues on how to reach Mundus at the castle, we head to the Colosseum located in the gardens nearby. Along the way, we encounter a group of enemies known as Blades, lizard-like demons made by Mundus who are equipped with armor and the ability to fire their talons as projectiles. These guys are a good example of the reused enemy designs from the original Biohazard 4 project, but while they are more athletic than the enemies so far, they aren't too much trouble with the grenade gun. After reaching the Colosseum, it turns out every door in the area, including the main entrance, is locked except for one. So we find ourselves in a collapsed portion of the garden where we activate some moving platforms to reach a new weapon floating above. The inscription on the altar refers to the flaming gauntlets as Ifrit, and like Alistair, it has its own trial to prove Dante's worthiness. No, it's not Clive. After successfully taming the Devil Arm, Dante can now perform powerful punches and kicks coated in a magical hellfire, and holding the attack button charges the weapon, making it arguably the strongest in the game, letting you shred through enemy health. Never take them off. Now that we have Ifrit, we can open a door back in the main area of the garden which needs some magical fire to unlock. But as we do, a thunderstorm suddenly rolls in, and with it, another general of Mundus' army known as Griffin. Griffin is a demonic bird with power over wind and lightning, taking Phantom's place as a recurring threat for this part of the game.
Block off, Featherface, or you can stick around and find out the hard way.
Like with Shadow, you might recognize his smaller, more marketable counterpart from DMC5. In this battle, Griffin will shoot electrical pills at you from various angles while pulling and pushing you around with the wind. Try to time your dodge rolls and jumps to avoid them, or if you have it, use the air hike ability with Alistair, which lets you double jump to make it easier. He can be a bit of a pain to hit up close, so instead assault him with a grenade gun for some easy damage. Guy thinks he's Uka Uka. Now that Featherface is flocked off, we're free to punch the brazier and carry on. But not long after, we notice something is watching us. A horde of marionettes wander out of the mist, led by a fetish, a powerful demon with the ability to control cursed puppets equipped with flamethrowers. But we've got Ifrit and the grenade guns, so... After that minor distraction, we punch a few more puppets and arrive at the Canyon of Mist. A maze where taking the wrong turn will send you back to the beginning. To find our way, we make sure to follow this ball of light down the correct path, while also freeing it from any demon who happens to swallow it. Making it to the end will see us at the greenhouse. There, we kick a death scythe until it explodes so we can grab the Sign of Chastity, which we'll need to get a chalice in the next room. But isn't there someone we haven't seen in a while? After we pick up the chalice, the exits get sealed, and it's round 2 with Nella Angelo. He readies his sword, then tries to sucker punch us. So much for honor. This battle is just like the first. Make use of your surroundings to prevent getting boxed in. As you've probably noticed, DMC1 likes to reuse its bosses for different stages of the game, which can be separated into thirds. Phantom for the first, Griffin for the second, and someone we haven't seen yet for the third. But Nella Angelo is the exception. After a brief skirmish where I definitely didn't use an item that took a third of his health, we defeat the demon swordsman, causing him to burst into flames and vanish into the sky. We place the chalice onto its pedestal, which opens up a path leading to an abandoned pirate ship. We'll need to explore it, but the only way to get on is to swim in through the bilge. So we jump into the water, which puts us into this first person view, which was definitely an odd choice, but even though these underwater parts get a bad rep, they really aren't as bad as people say. You will find some enemies, but you get a needle gun that kills them pretty easily anyway. Once we reach the deck, we find a door that's barred by 2 swords, telling us to protect the ship. Defeating the death scythe that appears will set the ship in motion, but we're not done yet. After we leave the cave and get to open air, Griffin attacks us again. The main difference with this battle is that the ship has a lot more vertical space, which makes reaching him more difficult. And he has this smaller bird that swoops at you every now and then, which is just kind of annoying. If you have air raid with Alistair, now's a good time to use it, otherwise grenades still work pretty well. Defeating Griffin for the second time gives us access to the captain's cabin and the Staff of Hermes. But after we remove it, the ship begins to sink, forcing us to find a way out while it capsizes. The pressure of the water forces the door shut, so we escape through a vent and fight past a number of blades while swimming to the surface as fast as we can. Don't worry, you can't actually drown. Sorry for the anxiety. Once out, we resurface in a cave and follow a path that leads us to one of the lower levels of the Colosseum that's filled with spike traps and moving floors. We pick up the emblem shield from a skeleton whose arm also unlocks the way out and activates the traps, for some reason. But we make our way through and find our way back to the garden. Now that we have the shield, we can explore the 2 rooms on either side of the Colosseum's main entrance, and after clearing the numerous trap-filled areas, we finally get the items needed to access the Colosseum itself, and a new gun called the Nightmare Beta. It's an odd-looking devil arm that functions by drawing power from the devil trigger gauge, and attacks by letting loose a number of green energy bolts which pierce through enemies and ricochets off surfaces, making it good for tight spaces. Once we finally gain access to the Colosseum, a platform at its center asks for a sacrifice in exchange for the Wheel of Destiny, and right on cue, our third and final fight with Griffin begins. We pull out the grenade gun and let him have it. After dealing enough damage, Griffin will lose one of his wings. So with the chicken grounded, we can safely engage with melee attacks. Hit him with charged Ifrit strikes up close and grenades if you need to back off. As Griffin collapses from his wounds, he lands on the center platform, taking the place of the sacrifice. He's pinned by one of the Colosseum's mechanisms, but despite his injuries and against Dante's warnings, Griffin begs Mundus for more power so that he can keep fighting. And it's here that we finally get a glimpse of what we came for. 3 red eyes glow eerily in the sky as Mundus denounces Griffin for his failures and strikes him down.
beat him. Maybe it was too easy for you.
Mundus. His heinous ways make me sick, killing even his own, like they were nothing. He's the one that took the life of my mother, my brother, and Shirley. My mother used to always tell me that my father was a man who fought for the weak. He had courage and a righteous heart. In the name of my father, I will kill Mundus.
So it's rest in peace for Big Chicken, and with Dante's resolve strengthened, we go into major spoilers. The rest of the video will cover the end of the story, as well as some information on the game's unlockables and secrets, so if you want to see what happens next for yourself, here's your warning. The Wheel of Destiny lets us lower the drawbridge and return to the castle, but now that night has fallen, Malay Island's connection to the underworld has become stronger. The castle has begun to morph in strange ways, and the demons have become more active. Once we're back in the Great Hall, we encounter Plasma, a type of shape-shifting demon which is now roaming the halls. They aren't too dangerous individually, but there will be times where a group of them will attack at once. They can take the form of a bat which can shoot lasers, or as Dante himself. So try to keep track of them when fighting to prevent getting blindsided. Once we return to the cathedral, we can finally see what was making the pillars pulsate. Lying in the center of the room is a strange pool of liquid which seems to be distorting the castle, and inspecting it will cause the entity known as Nightmare to emerge and attack us. It serves as the recurring boss for the last third of the game and is the most interesting one in my opinion. It's a bioweapon created by Mundus using his own blood, one so powerful that it can threaten to destroy the demon world itself. Nightmare also makes up the third and final familiar of a certain summoner's demonic party later in the series. It fights with lasers, missiles, blades, and the ability to trap us in an alternate dimension. If it catches you, you'll need to fight off weaker versions of previous bosses. But this can be surprisingly useful. Defeating them drops a bunch of green orbs and does a chunk of damage to Nightmare. But besides this, it's normally impervious to all damage, with the only other way to hurt it being to restrain Nightmare until it exposes its cause. This can be done by hitting the switches on either side of the room to activate the magic circles in the arena, which will shoot lightning to bind it. Once pinned, Nightmare will start attacking relentlessly, which will expose corresponding cores depending on which move it uses, and because it uses different attacks depending on where Dante is standing, I found the most reliable way of dealing damage is to stand in front to bait out its ice laser attack. Once it's about to fire, get out of the way and jump onto it, because when using the laser, Nightmare will always reveal the core on its back. Use charged attacks with Ifrit to deal significant damage, and while the damage it does makes Ifrit the obvious choice in this fight, there is another benefit to using it over Alistair. Nightmare has a secret mechanic with its cores which works in Ifrit's favor. They'll start to break over the course of the fight, which changes Nightmare's attack patterns and makes it more aggressive for the rest of the playthrough. But the condition to break the cores relies on the number of hits dealt to them and not the damage. So Ifrit's ability to deal a powerful 4-hit combo means they'll break at a slower rate, whereas Alistair's quick multi-hit attacks will shatter them sooner. After defeating Nightmare, it melts away and we're free to immediately fail platforming over the bridge again. Reaching the other side will let us use the Staff of Hermes, which activates portals to different parts of the castle. There isn't anything to do in the right one for now, so we jump through the left and arrive back in the area where we fought our first marionette. How nostalgic. There another portal opens up and we jump through, but as we approach the door in front of us, a couple of frosts, blade-like demons made of ice, decide to sucker punch us, so we respond by punching them really, really hard. Then we explore a new area of the castle, play tennis with a statue of a dragon, which might just be a T-Rex, obtain the Quicksilver and access the throne room. But waiting in there for us.
A man with guts and honor. I like that. But it's a shame you serve Mundus.
Nello Angelo releases his full power, revealing the doppelganger underneath, and the two face off for the last time. Here, along with fireballs and melee attacks, Nello Angelo can also use the Summon Swords ability, which conjures magical blades to attack us from all angles. They can appear around him as a shield or around Dante and will attempt to stab us after a delay. Memorize the pattern they surround you in so you know which way to dodge. Hit the demon with melee attacks until he starts to block, and when he does, jump behind Nello Angelo to continue the attack. Or if you have Kick 13 for Ifrit, use it with Devil Trigger to break his guard. Once Nello Angelo backs off to use Summon Swords, whip out the grenade gun. and after we nail it with one last Devil Trigger infused shot, Nello Angelo ascends into the air and bursts in a storm of demonic energy, leaving nothing behind except...
Virgil, Dante, happy birthday.
It turns out that demon wasn't a doppelganger of Dante after all. It was his brother Virgil. We were told earlier that both Virgil and their mother Eva were killed by Mundus 20 years ago, but that isn't completely true. After Sparta died of mysterious causes, Mundus sent his demons to take revenge on his family when Dante and Virgil were still children. Eva, desperate to protect her sons, hid Dante from the attackers, but as she went to search for Virgil, she was found and killed. Meanwhile, Virgil had wandered away from the Sparta manor after a fight with Dante, so when the demons found him, he was alone. They drove their blades into the child, and with no one there to answer his cries for help, Virgil felt the powerlessness of being human for the first time. This trauma caused his demonic blood to awaken, and as he tore the attackers apart, he cursed his human blood, and a drive to seek more power overcame him. He never wanted to feel powerless again. A goal that set Virgil on a path which led to his corruption by the very monster who had taken everything from him. But now there's another question. If Dante's brother fell to Mundus's control, then what about the woman who wears his mother's face? As for Dante, with the brothers' amulets reunited, they combine to reveal their true nature as the perfect amulet, a pendant that acts as a key to the underworld and the relic used by Sparta to seal Mundus away thousands of years ago. It was given to Eva as a present, who then passed it on to her sons, and when... let's just take this back out. United with Dante's sword the Force Edge, the blade awakens into the Devil's Sword Sparta, the weapon of the legendary Dark Knight, magically imbued with his own power. And so with the legacy of his family together again, Dante sets out to the underworld. We leave the throne room and enter a portal that takes us into the submerged basement of the castle. From there we flood the tower and swim up to get the Philosopher's Egg, which we'll need to rest in a fire to create the elixir. Leaving the tower we find a fireplace for the egg, but as we're waiting for the process to finish, we're attacked by Nightmare. Along with his previous abilities, Nightmare can now launch a boomerang-like attack around the arena, which can be tricky to dodge. I decided to use the Sparta in this fight instead of Ifrit because I was feeling a little sentimental, but you may have noticed that it doesn't have a Devil Trigger gauge. That's because the sword by itself is about as strong as the other weapons while using Devil Trigger, and well, Sparta's full power can't be controlled so easily. After Nightmare retreats, the elixir we were waiting for is completed. We take it to the master bedroom and use it to enter a mirror dimension housing the Philosopher's Stone, the final item in the game and what we need to open the gate to the underworld. After collecting it, we're attacked by a swarm of nobodies. Not those ones. These nobodies are lesser demons of the underworld that can grow in size and get stronger as the battle goes on. They'll grapple, lunge and swipe at you and after they've taken enough damage. We use the Sparta to hack and slash the horde while trying to avoid the exploding eyeballs being hurled at us, and after vanquishing the wannabe vampires, we leave the mirror world and head back to the cathedral. Once there, we feel the puddle reacting to the elixir. Stepping onto it will drop Dante into an inverted castle with a barrier blocking off the portal to the underworld. We slot the Philosopher's Stone in place and open the gateway. With the barrier down, we jump into the mouth of hell and enter the last area of the game. Besides being noticeably more fleshy than the castle, the underworld isn't too different, so we punch some demons and tear down some flesh walls until we reach a room decorated with magical ruins. Trish calls out to Dante for help, but as he rushes to her aid, a barrier forms, trapping him in the last battle against Nightmare.
Trish, stay back!
We've beaten him twice before, so this shouldn't be a problem. Keep the switches binding him active, bait his core out, and attack with Ifrit. But just as we think we've got it in the bag, a bolt of lightning strikes Dante from outside the barrier.
You fool! You're so easy.
Trish, You?
Following Mundus' orders, Trish has betrayed us and now joins the fight assisting Nightmare. We take care to avoid their combined attacks and hit the core as much as we can with Ifrit. Nightmare's defeat causes it to fire off lasers in all directions, bringing the walls crumbling down. And as a pillar is about to crush Trish, Dante pushes her out of the way.
Dante! Dante, why did you save my life?
Because you look like my mother. Now get out of my sight. The next time we meet, it won't be like this.
Dante!
Don't come any closer, you devil! You may look like my mother, but you're nowhere close to her. You have no soul. You have the face, but you'll never have her fire!
Leaving Trish, we travel deeper into Hell, fighting off the increasing swarms of demons and these tentacle things, while disabling mechanisms in the living cave to unseal the last door separating us from Mundus. On the other side of the sealed door is an even grander Great Hall, and sitting on a throne is a statue like the one that was in the castle. From it, we hear the voice of Mundus as he and Dante share the irony of another Sparta standing in his way.
Strange and ironic that it will end the same way.
But before the battle can begin, Mundus draws Dante's attention to Trish, who he has taken hostage. Dante is impaled with several bolts of demonic energy, and as Mundus prepares to deliver the finishing blow, Trish breaks free from her shackles and, like Dante before, pushes him to safety, taking the attack in his place. As Trish falls, Dante finds himself watching his mother die in front of him again.
Trish! No!
Useless scum. Failure is one thing, but taking an odd behavior like that. What is the matter? It is time to end your pitiful life.
How much longer are you going to keep zapping? Come out and show yourself, Mundus!
The shell we thought to be Mundus falls apart, and we see his true, rotting visage. He transports us into a pocket dimension where in the darkness of space, Mundus comments on how he can see the same light in Dante that Sparta once had. And when Dante asks why he targeted Eva, he's met with an amused Mundus calling her a worthless thing, saying that if it's a mother Dante wants, then he can create as many of it as he wishes, just like how he created Trish. And with this remark, Dante is finally pushed over the edge. He harnesses the power of his father, taking his form through a devil trigger, becoming the legendary Dark Knight Sparta. The two do battle across a universe of Mundus' creation, Dante firing balls of magic while Mundus responds with meteors, debris, and magic of his own. This aerial battle is one of many examples of Kamiya's love for the Space Harrier style shoot 'em up genre. These types of segments appear in a number of his works, including Bayonetta and Nier Automata. Holding the jump button speeds Dante up, while using melee attacks will actually have him dodge. Of course, Dante's guns are replaced with magic energy balls, and yes, the faster you mash, the more you shoot. It turns out the final boss fight was the arthritis we made along the way. We dodge Mundus' attacks by flying in circles, shatter the runes forming his protective barrier, and land attacks on the demon god to fill our devil trigger. Once we have enough power, we let loose a flaming dragon of demonic energy to deal massive damage. This move also makes Dante invulnerable, so use it to tank attacks that would normally hit you otherwise. After being pushed back, Mundus unleashes a volley of attacks and sends Dante crashing into a planet below, beginning the second phase of the fight. Here we're reverted to our normal state, but we can gain DT meter by attacking Mundus or one of his summons. Mundus will pull out moves from several bosses throughout the game while breaking the platforms to drop you into lava. Do your best to beat him quickly, otherwise he'll overwhelm you. Focus on his orbs to stop them from shooting you and to quickly build DT, and attack his lava dragon for some green orbs. Or if you're like me, use your stock of items to make the job easier. Once defeated, Mundus' dimension shatters and Dante is returned to the Great Hall.
My mother risked her life for me, and now you too. I should have saved you. I should have been the one to fill your dark soul with light!
He leaves the perfect amulet and the Devil Sword Spada with her, reuniting his parents one more time. But with Mundus defeated, the connection between the underworld and Malay Island is becoming unstable, so we need to make our way off the island within 5 minutes. We fight our way back through the fleshy halls of hell, take a lift through the portal to the human world, and run down the halls of the castle, but just as we're getting close to the exit, the floor collapses into the sewer and caves us in. As Dante is trying to find a way out, Mundus, who survived the battle, breaches into this dimension through the open Hellgate, and with no way to escape, the two resign themselves to their fate, each determined to kill the other. This fight has Mundus' godlike exterior deteriorating into a mass of writhing flesh and arms. The giant zombie-like abomination is probably another element left over from Biohazard 4. We punch and shoot as hard as we can to no avail, despite the health bar going down. Mundus mocks Dante, saying he is weak in the human world, suggesting his ability to take Sparta's form only happened because Dante's powers were amplified in the underworld. As things are starting to look bleak, we hear Eva's voice reassuring him, and like the first time we saw her, Trish appears in a bolt of lightning, but this time to save Dante. She feeds her energy into Ebony and Ivory, giving Dante enough power to finish the job.
It looks like we have a winner.
Jackpot.
Dante, I will return, and I will rule this world.
Goodbye. And when you do come back, give my regards to my son, will ya? Trish!
Dante.
With Mundus sealed and the two reunited, Dante comforts Trish, telling her that devils never cry, which proves that despite being a creation of Mundus, she is more human than she thinks. As the two search for an escape route, the carnival crashes into the sewer as if Kamiya himself has appeared, not to block our heroes but to unblock a path to safety. Thank you, Hideki Kamiya. Anyway, using Kamiya's machine guns, Dante blasts an escape route through the walls, and we pilot our way through the extensive cave systems of Malay Island and out to sea. As Malay Island collapses in on itself, Dante and Trish fly off, determined to continue their work as devil hunters under the new name, Devil Never Cry.
Yes? Okay, great. Where's the place? We'll be right there. This one has the password. Sounds heavy.
Okay, let's get it over with in 10 minutes. Can't let a single one of those suckers live.
5 minutes.
More than enough.
The shop's name was changed back shortly after. Alright, now that we're done with the story, let's talk about secrets and unlockables. Along with the normal missions, DMC also has secret missions hidden throughout the entire game. These are challenges that reward you with blue orb fragments for completing specific tasks, like killing an enemy in one hit, or platforming to reach the orb. It's definitely worth hunting these down, especially the last one, where you'll be rewarded a full blue orb and the Bangle of Time. an item that lets you freeze time by using the DT meter, but because of how inconspicuous some of these missions are, I recommend using a guide. Keep in mind if you end up missing a secret mission or blue orb fragments, you'll need to wait until your next playthrough to find them, because unlike the rest of the games in the series, this doesn't have a mission select. Going through the entire game is your only option if you miss any collectibles. And just so you know, completing the game for the first time will automatically throw you into hard mode as well. It acts like a new game plus, carrying over your items and upgrades with stronger enemies and remixed placements, so be ready for endgame level demons right from the get-go. Once you've done a playthrough on hard mode though, you'll get the option to choose difficulties as well as play the hardest mode, Dante Must Die, which has enemies use their own devil triggers to power up. You also get costumes, which are pretty neat. Along with the default look, you can use the legendary Dark Knight after beating the game once, which gives you control of Sparta. For the most part, he plays like Dante, except he has the devil arm Yamato, which works like Alistair, and his pistols Ebony and Ivory are replaced with Luce and Umbra. Similarly, completing the game on Dante Must Die will give you the Super Dante costume, which looks like regular Dante but has unlimited devil trigger, making it a pretty fitting reward for beating the most difficult version of the game. The unlimited DT even works with moves that normally drain the meter like Nightmare Beta or the Bangle of Time. But unfortunately, these costumes can only be used when starting a new game, so you'll need to power up your character from scratch. A first playthrough of the game only takes about 6 hours though, so give it a go if you haven't already. As a side note, if you want to learn more about Dante's history as Tony, there was actually a light novel released alongside DMC 1 that goes into more details about things like his life prior to the games, how he got his guns, and his relationship with characters who are referenced in DMC 5 like Nell Goldstein. In the end, even though it's been over 20 years since it first came out, I think Devil May Cry holds up pretty well, and while it isn't my favourite in the series, it's definitely one of my favourite games in general. Its impact on the action genre can't be understated, and the influence of the franchise is still being felt now, maybe more than ever. You can tell that Kamiya himself still has a soft spot for the game too, with all the references he's made to it over the years, both during his time with Capcom and in games after, like with the Bayonetta series. But as we know, while Kamiya created the series, it evolved in ways he never would have expected under the direction of Hideaki Itsuno, starting with Devil May Cry 2. If you made it this far, thanks for sticking around. DMC is one of my favourite franchises in gaming, so I want to cover the rest of the series at some point. Yes, even that one. So hopefully I'll see you there. Like if you liked it and subscribe if you're new. This has been Combo Trigger, but until next time, take care.